Tracy Spann is kind of like a man in waiting. He's ranked #1 and is looking for that important world title shot, and Dave has a look at him.
Tracy Spann's rise to prominence has a trademark: power. He showed it in anger after being cut in the first round by Miguel Santana. Right hand pop was a big weapon for the Plainfield, New Jersey southpaw. He closed the show convincingly in round 2. Elvis Perez met the same fate from different means. Spann showcased an educated left hand, and Perez couldn't get by the fourth. Brian Payton decided to trade bombs, but the biggest explosion came from Spann. With power like this, he's become the IBS #1 contender for a title shot.
And Dave's diehard keys to victory.
And Spann has been showing you the right hand in recent fights. We'll look for him to do that and cut off the ring against Paisan, who wants to show some good movement to stay away from the pounder and land some counter shots.
So will they be able to execute those? We're going to find out in a moment. And first, we'll find out about these two boxers. And for that, Michael Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Superstar Theater here at Merv Griffin's Resorts in Atlantic City, New Jersey tonight. Top Rank Incorporated and the undisputed, undefeated king of beers, Budweiser, presents professional boxing for your entertainment. These bouts are sanctioned by the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board. Boxing Commissioner Larry Hazard Sr. Deputy Commissioners are Lawrence Wallace and Yogi Hiltner. And the chairman is Jerry Gormley. The 3 judges on the undercard will be Rocky Castellani, Eugene Grant, and Lynn Carter. Chief physician at ringside, Dr. Frank B. Doggett, also in attendance. Dr. Charles Eden and Dr. Earl Shaw. The 2 referees working on an alternating basis will be Steve Smoger and Rafael Ramos, with the alternate counting for the knockdown seconds, and the timekeeper for all the bouts is Lindsey Tucker. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get things started with 10 rounds in the lightweight division. The referee for this bout is Rafael Ramos. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner, he's wearing the red trunks with white trim and weighs an even 135 pounds. He's from Caracas, Venezuela. His professional record, an excellent one: 26 victories, 15 by KO, only 5 defeats and 2 draws. Introducing Delmar Paisan. And his opponent, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing the red trunks with black trim, he weighed in at an even 136 pounds from Plainfield, New Jersey. Undefeated as a professional, 23-0, 18 KOs. Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Slam Bam Spann.
You received the pre-fight instruction. Any question? ¿Recibiste las instrucciones? ¿Tiene alguna pregunta? Protect yourself at all times. Protégete todo el tiempo. Shake hands. Come on.
Brave talking.
Tracy Spann with his trainer Johnny Pearsall, trying to continue his march toward what he hopes will be a lightweight championship match. And Delmar Paisan, who fought twice and won this past year, had a couple of years of inactivity before that, and this is a major step for him. We go into round 1. This one is scheduled for 10.
Spann took after Marvin Hagler as a role model. You see, with the styles the same and the same kind of road. Both needed to get to the top. Long, deliberate road to the rankings.
And I could think of a lot worse role models to pick than Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
They really were similar. Spann had a situation, a lot of people avoided him because he was a southpaw and good.
And a big puncher. And that knockout ratio should indicate that, yes. Spann with 78%, Paisan 45%, and right away the straight left landing by Tracy Spann. Dave, he said this morning, Tracy did, that he was going to not be as aggressive as we've seen him in recent fights, maybe because against Brian Payton he got nailed early.
He got nailed with a lot of good shots against Payton before he turned it around. But I don't think you can maintain that strategy through the fight. Once an aggressive fighter, always an aggressive fighter. You can stay there and try to be poised, but once a fighter gets hit, he goes back to what he's done. So we'll see how he handles it.
Tracy also told us that he hadn't seen Paisan at all. So there is Delmar switching to the left-handed stance, which we suspected he might during this bout. And it's rare in the pro ranks that you see 2 left-handers facing each other.
least afterward, you don't have to listen to the complaint they had to fight a southpaw.
That's right. Halfway through round one.
First round.
True to his word, this has been a Tracy Spann who is a little bit more cautious. There's good body work by Spann, and Paisan comes back with a good right. Right hand underneath again by Spann, and he is a murderous body puncher.
Cannot get too close to him, and that is what Payton did in trading bombs with Spann. One reason why Spann got hit more. This fight's been a little more on the outside, but now it's getting in there.
Again, Paisan landing. I think he is landing as Tracy Spann comes in to throw those bombs.
Landed again, and when Spann gets hit, it's hard for him to think that he'll sit back and say, okay, I've got to adjust now. He's got to control anger. It will be an interesting thing.
And now Paisan goes back to the right-handed stance, though he fared pretty well as a lefty. Straight left hand getting in by Spann. And so even though it wasn't a wild first round, there were some big shots landed by both boxers. So round one goes into the bank, and it wasn't a bad one for either man. The corner of Delmar Paisan, who found out, Dave, in that first round that he could exchange with Tracy Spann. Whether he can continue remains to be the question.
And he promised some movement, that he was going to go laterally in this fight, but he might be encouraged by that first round.
Tracy Spann, the man who has shown us tremendous knockout power during the course of his bouts. 18 knockouts, 23 wins for Spann. We head into round two. Paisan, the 31-year-old, who last year fought the same guy, Jose Gonzalez, twice, in November and December, in Caracas, Venezuela, won both over 10, but in 1987 and 1988 did not box at all. So he has not been that active in there. We see how close that first round was.
Percentage to Paisan and the number of punches to Spann.
Good right hand underneath by Spann, and the right hook. I want to send out greetings to our buddy Barry Tompkins, who has a well-deserved night off tonight. He's out doing basketball around the country. He gives me the rare treat of working solo with you, Dave.
We have to thank Barry for that. The human frequent flyer.
I think he owns an airline now because he does so many miles. We're in round two of what is scheduled for a 10-rounder. The #1 IBF lightweight contender on the right of your screen, Tracy Spann. It's Delmar Paisan, and Spann going downstairs, really picking up the pace to the body.
And he was angered after getting hit in the head. A good short right by Paisan, who also just hit him low right there.
Now Paisan switches to lefty. Well, now it's a slugfest just like we're used to seeing from Spann.
He promised that caution, but the aggression is too much inside of him. It comes out naturally.
That's also what he does best. But they would like more defense from Spann, and in this bout, he's getting tagged with some shots.
As he did against Payton. It's such a subtle thing that trainers try to work on with fighters, because there's so many of them, if you try to make them defensive fighters, you take away their offense.
Right hand a little bit low by Spann. You know, he's like Robbie Sims and a couple other guys. He just can't be in a boring fight. Getting ready to celebrate our 10th anniversary, and we're going back and looking at a lot. Good right hand by Paisan, looking at a lot of clips, and boy, we've seen some Robbie Sims fights, and they are all wars, and that's the same with Spann.
Like the Iran Barkley fight.
Oh my, and Murray Sutherland and Doug DeWitt, just goes on and on. Good shots on the inside by Spann. He is wailing away with that right hook to the body. And for his part, Delmar Paisan is giving almost as much as he's getting.
He's been able to shorten up his punches inside, and Spann has been extending himself too much and not bringing his punches back. He's been open to the body.
Well, as round two ends, we detect some swelling around the right eye of Delmar Paisan, and this one is heating up. We peek into round 3 of a scheduled 10-rounder between Tracy Spann on the left of your screen and Delmar Paisan. Mentioned that Spann is ranked number 1 by the IBF. He's also ranked number 4 by the WBA and number 5 by the WBC. Look at this. This continues to be very close.
Paisan coming straight ahead and cutting off shots. The Spann is fighting so far as a classic southpaw, whereas in other fights we saw him square up more and get more power on the right hand, which led to his knockout.
It's a very good point, Dave. But when he does that, when he squares up more, he's more susceptible to being hit. And so this emphasis he wants on defense may take away some of that natural aggressiveness, and we've talked about that already. He gave Spann the first 2 rounds.
By as close a margin as those numbers indicate. Very.
Start punching.
I mentioned the swelling around the right eye of Delmar Paisan. It's becoming a little bit more pronounced. And Spann just bounced the left hand off that area of the head. Facing a lefty, not that new to Paisan, and he beat a very good lefty in Rodolfo Aguilar back in '86, a man who gave Julio Cesar Chavez some trouble. So this is not a problem for him. And of course, Paisan himself is fighting much of this bout as a lefty. Good uppercut by Spann.
And a good adjustment, too. He missed over the top of the left hand and came right back with the uppercut. Good to see a fighter thinking in sequence.
And if there's been a criticism of Tracy Spann, it is that sometimes he hasn't always been a thinking man's boxer, but has relied more on his power only. Good right underneath by Paisan. Paisan, 31 years old, knowing he needs a win to kick his boxing career back in high gear. And a win over somebody like Spann would surely do it.
Paisan effective when he goes to the southpaw style.
I agree, Dave. If I was him, I think I'd stay in that style.
And if I were Spann when that happened, I would adjust and fight a little more square up and try to make the adjustment go back.
So here in round 3, Tracy Spann has been a little bit more dominant, I think, than he was in the first 2. Paisan's still having his moments. And in this latter part of the round, Delmar is making me a liar.
He's going to the body well recently.
So round 3 is history, and it was a good one.
Spann making an investment in the future of this fight, trying to go to the body, hoping it slows Paisan down later on.
And we peek into round 4. Tracy Spann and Delmar Paisan in what is turning out to be, I think, a very entertaining lightweight matchup.
Paisan coming on strongly at the end of round 3 and tags Spann a few times. And he's been awkward. He comes in on angles, he ducks underneath, he moves the head nicely, and he's in position to punch.
What does our punch profile have to say? My, oh my, it's a close one. Even with the numbers, Spann is throwing much more. The accuracy level of Paisan much better.
He's been so economical with his shots. However, when there's a big difference in aggressiveness like that, in a close fight, the judges will often lean toward the more aggressive fighter as the tiebreaker.
Well, it stands to reason if you throw that many more punches, they're going to give you a little bit of an edge, because some punches that some may think didn't land, others may think landed.
Especially if the numbers are like these tonight, where they're about the same. And very workmanlike and very vulnerable. He dips his shoulders when he goes into punching. He can be hit with counters, but he wants to fight aggressively.
Paisan doing a nice job of covering up on those ropes and not getting hit with the Spann right hook you talked about. Still some swelling around the left eye of Paisan, but not, I don't think anything that's damaging to his vision yet. The jab of Spann and the right hook getting in. Good combination by Tracy.
You notice he still has the right hand up by his chin. Hasn't dropped him. He's trying to jab from the shoulder, which is smart.
Ramos breaking the two-man. It's been a clean fight, especially for two guys who are doing a lot of brawling. Good jab by Paisan.
Paisan answering every time Spann comes inside.
And you know what? The body punches of Spann not landing as much as they might. Good left hand by Tracy, because Paisan's doing a good job of covering up there. The fourth, another interesting round, one that I kind of lean towards Spann, but Paisan has done some very good work. We'll stay here and peek into the corner of Tracy Spann. That's Johnny Pearsall himself, a former great light heavyweight.
Moving outside too much. Get close and go to work. Go in behind your hands and go to work. You're out here too much. Don't you get close to this much. Let's go to work now. Sit down. Don't pull out of there. You're in there, stay in there. You can get out to the right. You understand? Step out of there. Around to the right. Don't pull straight out the hole. Come on, wake up. Let's go to work. Let's get close to this man. I want you to back him up. Fight. Take it to him. Take it to him. Let's see what we got there.
Spann landing from the outside, then he gets in close. And then the left hand came across and nailed Paisan.
Good combinations there, especially the body.
I think they told him something smart about moving out to the right when he backs out of a tight situation. He's been coming straight back and getting caught.
Look in as they work with the end swell on that eye. And that's where Tracy Spann doing his own work on the eye. Not as kind as the corner work on Paisan's eye. We head into round 5. And we don't see any bloated ice bags in that corner, as we did in another famous bout. Mike Tyson's eye was worked on in a very odd fashion. You know, by the way, in that Tyson Douglas, I'll tell you one guy who had it kind of semi-picked, and that was Davis Miller, who, or Miller Davis, I should say, who wrote a story for Sport Magazine in which he really talked about how Mike Tyson might lose.
And Tyson has been self-destructing since he lost Kevin Rooney, and this really capped it out.
Yeah, more about that during our ringside report. Right here, Tracy Spann picking up the pace against Paisan. The power of Spann now making itself felt. This is Tracy Spann at his best. Big hook by Spann. That buckled the knees of Paisan.
We talked about how he had to establish that right hand, and there he did.
And Dave, did you see the way he took a step to the left and squared up more like you said he needed to do to land that right hook?
And you've got to wonder if he's going to start thinking about doing that more. He got results. You know, sometimes in the course of action, the simplest thing can slip away from you, and that is what's happened with Tracy Spann.
And I think that happens more in boxing than any other sport because the consequences are more dire. In basketball, if you forget to box out, they just get a rebound. In boxing, if you forget to do something, you get hurt.
Spann jumped upon it when Paisan switched to the right-handed stance. He went right to the body and then went upstairs.
And now Delmar goes back to being a lefty. So here in the 5th round, Tracy Spann more dominant. Good jab by Paisan. More dominant than he has been in this bout. Hurting Paisan, but give Delmar some credit. He stayed in there.
Now he's gone back to the right-handed stance, and Spann tried with the powerful right hand squared up, but he missed.
Right hook by Paisan. We may see a trace of blood over one of Tracy Spann's eyes. Maybe the right eye. We'll have to see. So in round 5, Tracy turned on the power, but Paisan was able to sustain through it. As we pass the midway point in this bout, Paisan is
Go inside. You stand outside looking right in front of him. Let's go to way. Move your hands. You got to get off.
That cut over, there's a good right hand by Paisan, maybe where that cut developed. Tracy Spann working with good body work.
And now he's got the man trapped against the ropes, and he goes to the right hand and lands it. Now you see him squirt up, and there the right hand came over the top of the ear.
Round 6, scheduled for 10. Tracy Spann in the red on the right, number 1 ranked in the lightweight division by the IBF, and Delmar Paisan, the 31-year-old veteran, who comes in here with hopes of springing an upset. Paisan 26-5-2 is his record.
You know, you just look at Tracy Spann and you wonder if he'll ever be a defensive fighter. It seems like he's really married to this kind of a style. Sort of like Harold Knight, also from his hometown of Plainfield.
You know, it's funny.
Same style.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Harold Knight when you started that sentence. So, and it's very similar. Let's look at your scorecard, Dave.
Spann pulling out ahead here after Paisan was close through 3 rounds.
Boy, how many great fights did we see Harold Knight, and how about the one with Kenny Basemore?
That was unreal.
Wow, he would walk through punches like Spann does. Ultimately, though, that caught up with him.
And that does shorten careers. But there are certain things you just seemingly can't instill in fighters. You can try, but when they get hit, they go back.
Uppercuts by Spann. In the 5th round, the last round, Spann had Paisan against the ropes and I think stunned him with the right hook, but Delmar was able to sustain through that. And there is some blood now still coming out of that left eye. Tracy Spann, the cut over the left eye. We talked to Spann earlier today about the fact that he has never in his pro career gone 10 rounds. The longest he has been is 8. He says, though, I'm in shape. I can do it if I have to.
And tonight, very well could be the night he has to. Paisan is durable. He's taking some good shots. Switch styles often enough to discourage the bomb from landing.
And Paisan not only has gone 10 on many occasions, on 5 occasions he has gone 12 rounds.
It seems that when Paisan switches to the right-hand side, he wants to get off the right-hand lead against his southpaw opponent.
A reminder that later on tonight, Razai Bramble will be defending his NABF super lightweight crown against Santos Cordona.
There was a right-hand lead again by Paisan.
Paisan continues in the left-handed stance, stalking Tracy Spann. This round has been probably their least accurate as punchers, I think. And we'll be returning for round 7 right after this. In clear, they seem to think that, yes, it's appropriate for Holyfield to be fighting Buster Douglas next.
Pretty close to a landslide, and properly so.
I couldn't agree more. I don't want to prejudice the viewers.
There you see Paisan doing some good work with his right hand, and Spann noticing that cut, wiping it away. That's what you don't want to do.
And you can see still some blood seeping through. We head into round 7, and I think it is safe to say that in all the times we've seen Tracy Spann, this is the most problems he's had. He's got the cut eyes, and against the guy who's doing fairly well, and he's headed into territory he normally doesn't go into, and he just took a big right hand by Paisan.
Spann's bombs have not been there for him tonight.
Well, of course, this week started out, well, last week really, with the upset of all time practically. So we'll see if that upset trend continues.
Paisan creeping closer by winning the last round.
And with 4 remaining, counting this one, there's plenty of time. Very difficult for Tracy Spann, who's rated #1 and #4, #5 respectively. He just has to keep fighting and winning, and it's tough when you're in that position because you bump into a guy like this who isn't a household name and who's very tough, and you can lose.
And you've got to go maybe 9 months to get your title shot, and with Spann's style, there's never an easy fight.
Now, I think of another lightweight who's now rated in the top 10 again, has fought his way back. Frankie Randall, who was so close to a title shot, got knocked out by Primo Ramos, then had to take a series of fights and over about a 2-year period. Now has just now gotten back to a ranking.
All those years seemingly going down the drain.
It's got to be very depressing and disturbing for boxers when that happens. And that's what Tracy Spann is trying to avoid here tonight.
He made a point at the weigh-in this morning saying you can't fight just to protect your rating. You've got to live, you've got to make some money and keep going on.
That's right. This is his livelihood. He's got to provide for his wife and children.
But it sure does illustrate how some fighters get all the build-up and they get an easy road to the top. Right. And you get a lot of fighters who have such a painstaking journey.
Good uppercut there by Spann. And Dave, it strikes me that's been a weapon he hasn't used maybe as much as he would like to.
He's the taller fighter, and the way Paisan's been coming in, leaning forward, Spann should have been going to that shot more.
Tracy holding on a little bit now on the inside. We're in the 7th. It's scheduled for 10. Good hook there by Spann. Paisan going downstairs to the body in what has been another close round here in the 7th. So Tracy Spann hopes he's 3 rounds away from protecting his #1 ranking. We'll see.
Often what happens when fatigue sets in now, the heads are drooping a little bit and banging into each other.
And that won't help Tracy Spann's left eye, which is cut. It's been cut for several rounds. They have basically stopped the bleeding, but every once in a while it starts to bleed again. We're in round 8. It's scheduled for 10.
Wow. Not a big edge for a #1 contender.
No, sirree. Paisan picking up the pace here, trying to pressure Spann if he can. He's got to know, Dave, at this point in the bout, that he's facing a #1 contender, and even though that edge in the punching doesn't look dramatic for Spann, Paisan knows he's got to do something in these last few rounds to really put an impression in the judge's minds.
Especially when you fight on the road, you've got to figure you need an extra round to begin with anyway. Not that it always works out that way, but a fighter should attack it from that perspective.
Paisan was fighting as a righty, and he's back to a righty. Would you, if you were him, stay as a righty or a lefty?
I would go back to the southpaw stance because from the way Spann has fought him, it's apparent that he expected a right-hander tonight. And he's gotten a southpaw, and it's taken away his right hand.
Yeah, I would agree. And the only time Spann cranks up that hook really well is when Paisan is a righty. Now Paisan is back as a left-hander. Now what Delmar Paisan is doing is switching back and forth on almost every beat.
And Tracy Spann, who has not been beyond this distance, is showing the effects of a long fight.
When this round ends, he will be in no man's land, never having seen the 9th round in his career before. He assured us today that he's prepared to go that distance. Good straight left by Spann. Tracy does not look, though, like he's setting down on his punches very well, Dave.
And that's been apparent in his body attack, especially. He's been winging them from the side instead of planting himself and really digging punches to the ribs. And Paisan is not showing the effects of body punches he sustained earlier. He's still strong. In fact, looks to be fresher of the two fighters.
Throwing more punches right now and working better on the inside is Delmar Paisan. Round 8 is about to go in the record books, and Tracy Spann will see something he's never seen before, the 9th round.
Paisan landing a good short right across, and that seemed to jar Tracy Spann. 73 punches for Paisan in round 8, a high total for him.
Most, I believe, he's thrown in his bout, correct?
Yes.
We're into round 9. I mentioned going away that Spann's never seen this round. What about his stamina?
Even though Spann landed a little bit more, I think Paisan had better shots in that round from a power standpoint.
And you ended up giving that round to Paisan.
Making this a debatable fight with 2 rounds to go.
It's pretty close in our minds. And the fact that Paisan threw more punches in the last round than he has in any others would indicate that he might be poised to make an assault, make a run at Tracy Spann. And your scorecard? Nah, we may have some number problems there, because I think
I've got a 2-point fight.
I think it's a 2-point fight.
Tracy Spann.
We'll do our arithmetic. Well, and you know what? That's good to see. I always thought I was the only guy that got these numbers screwed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I thought I was the only one that ever got
these people with the new math, you know?
Paisan is throwing lots of punches in this round. Spann with the jab. This is a much more tentative Tracy Spann than we've seen now.
He started out cautious, got aggressive in the middle rounds, and now he's got to suck it up and get this victory from his gut.
This is maybe out of left field. Do you suppose there could be something wrong with Spann's left hand? He has not thrown it with conviction, Dave.
Quite possibly. He's not really putting much on his shots. He's tentative with it, and he's pretty much pawing with it. But one thing, he hasn't shaken it in pain, so we'll look for that, too.
He's throwing the jab and the right hook, but that straight left and the uppercut from the left hand just don't seem to be there as much. Double hook by Spann. This is a close round, though. Paisan not doing as much in the second portion of this round as he did early.
And you see Spann looking a little more aggressive.
This is Tracy Spann, the boxer. Very much a different posture for him. And if I was Delmar Paisan, I would really be trying to take advantage of this, and he is. Backing Spann against the ropes. I have not seen Tracy Spann back against the ropes in all the bouts we've done with him.
And the stronger puncher in the last couple of rounds has been Paisan from a strength standpoint.
So they wail away at the end of round 9, and Delmar Paisan, I think, has a bead on something that he thinks could give his boxing career a shot in the arm. We'll see. Anyway, Tracy Spann has got to be wondering as we head into the 10th round.
Look, man, we need this.
And remember those keys to victory, Dave. Let's see how they're doing in that regard.
Spann has gotten the ability to cut off the ring, but the right hand has only been there sparingly for him. Paisan has shown some good movement, and his counter shots have been there. They've brought him back into this fight.
And the ironic thing is, those keys to victory were predicated on Paisan doing a little more boxing. Now it's Spann boxing.
A very rare posture for him, and watch Paisan coming in, doing some good work with the left hand up there, and Spann tying up, and you can see the pace of this fight telling on him, and Paisan sensing this fight is winnable.
Ladies and gentlemen, 10th and final round.
And Spann just cannot keep his hands up all the time. And I think he needs this round.
We are headed into the 10th. Delmar Paisan, the 31-year-old veteran, fighting out of Caracas, Venezuela, has come in here and given Tracy Spann much more than I think Spann and his people thought they would get. Tracy Spann in the 10th round, maybe needing to pull this out. And that's a good example of what happened in the 9th round.
And Paisan, really for the first time in several rounds, landed more punches.
And they are going toe-to-toe here in the 10th.
Hey, if you're Tracy Spann and the #1 contender, you figured bad enough you've left it to the judges in a close situation to begin with. You've got to go out with a volley. And yet this is Paisan's territory.
Paisan has been 10 rounds a number of times, has been 12 rounds 5 times. Not so with Tracy Spann. Oh, you got it close.
Paisan making a big run. Spann cut out of the corner of his right eye.
Now both eyes are cut for Spann. The left eye had a cut. Now the right eye is cut.
But he's going to ignore that as a factor. He's just got to dig in and fight because finesse has not been a strong point for him tonight.
Paisan pushing the attack against Spann. We've seen Spann be so dominant in his appearances here on Top Rank Boxing, knocking people out, often in a devastating fashion, but not so tonight.
His strength has not been there. He's not settled down on his shots.
The jab of Spann, a pouring weapon right now. Good right hand by Paisan. That may have stunned Tracy Spann. With a little over a minute left to go in this fight, he is pushing Spann backwards now. We have seen #1 contenders fall here at Top Rank Boxing. Tommy Ayers, I remember when he was at the top of the welterweight division, poised for a title shot, so it's not unprecedented.
Spann has been fighting the last half of this round not to get hurt instead of fighting aggressively.
Right by Paisan. There's no question Paisan is dominating this 10th round. Whether he did enough before it to get a decision remains to be seen. There are only 30 seconds left to go in this bout.
And if you're scoring at home, remember rounds 1 and round 3, which were very close. In a situation where a fight could end in a draw or go one way or another, it's often those early rounds that have a big telling effect.
And only the 5th, in which Spann hurt him, was a real clear-cut round. Good left hand by Paisan. What a 10th round for Delmar Paisan. He has thrown and landed many more punches than Tracy Spann. That'll do it. They both feel they won. Delmar Paisan thinks that he has come in here and pulled off what would be a pretty major upset. This crowd appreciative, and why not? It was a good effort by that man.
He came, good style. He crossed Spann up, mixed his styles very well, took shots to the body, and dished out quite a few. And like a veteran racehorse, he made a big run at the end.
The last 3 rounds, Paisan threw more punches than he had in rounds earlier in the bout.
And the big question is going to be whether he did enough early in this fight where it looked like Spann had an edge. And here's Paisan in the 10th. A good, crisp right hand is accurate. And he's just all over Tracy Spann from a technique standpoint here.
And probably a key factor was the switching from lefty to righty by that man. Was it all for naught? Did it get him a decision, an upset win? Michael Buffer will tell us.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I give the official scoring, let's have a round of applause for these two lightweights, Delmar Paisan and Tracy Spann. Here's the official scoring. Lynn Carter scores the belt 96-95. Rocky Castellani scores it 96-94. And Eugene Grant has it 98-92 for the winner by unanimous decision, still undefeated from Plainfield, New Jersey, Tracy Spann.
Well, Tracy Spann ends up with a unanimous decision win. Maybe only the margin of 1 judge is surprised. We'll be back. Don't go away. Well, a look at our punch profile shows you that in that 10th round, Delmar Paisan made quite an impression. 39 punches landed out of 94. Then let's look at the total figure. Very interesting. 251 landed for Paisan, 236 for Spann. Spann ended up with a close decision, and he's a fortunate man. Let's go up to Dave Bontempo with the top contender.
Okay, Al, Tracy, you've seen those numbers. A very close fight there. What do you think of this?
No doubt about it. You know, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know nothing about him, so I had no tape or nothing. You know, I just try to do what I do best, that's all.
We've seen more fire from you in other fights.
Yeah, but he was tricky, he was switching up on me and stuff, so he threw me off. I want to say this, I want to dedicate this fight to a dear friend that passed away earlier this year named Jeff. I want to say hi to Denise and his son and wish them the best.
Okay, that's done. What about the possibility of, did you overlook this guy at all?
Yeah and no, but I was looking for a title shot, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I'm fighting everybody else. I proved myself I'm #1 contender.
Okay, and we'll look for you in future fights to come along. And congratulations to Tracy Spann. Well, Tracy Spann racks up a tough victory here, but nonetheless stays #1 contender. You stay with us. We'll be back with more after this.